Good morning everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to do another panel in my vintage sewing technique project, which is hosted by the lovely Susanna from Vintage Blend Studio. So I believe this time it is ribbon embroidery. Let's have a little look. Where are we? July, block number 7, ribbon embroidery. A floral piece of fabric to embroider, a large range of silk ribbons to match, leaves, da-da-da-da-da. So that's if you had purchased the kit, which I didn't. So I'm heading off on a slightly different colour wave, but still following the same sort of prompts. So here's our journal so far. And yes, I've had this vintage piece of ribbon embroidery kicking around on my desk for probably 2 years. And when I saw that prompt come up, I was like, oh, finally I might be able to find a home for this little thing. So the plan is to reuse an old piece and then embellish it with some new stitching to create a new piece, if you will. Now I've got my threads here. These are the threads I got from purveyor of Reclaimed Textiles on Instagram. So there's a bit of a mix of all sorts in here, and there's little bits of everything. And I thought, perfect, that's part of the challenge, to use what I've got here, to try and create something new. So let's have a look where this would go in the book. Gosh, we've done a bit when you don't come back to the book for a little while. Okay, so we've got a page here we could put something, or we carry on there. So colour-wise, I think it matches that. Maybe we try and sort of blend a little bit, those two. So in the back pocket, there should be. Now, I've had a few people ask how I made the journal. I've attempted to find the video. It was part of the Tim Holtz series, and within that series I made a journal and some journal covers, and this one was just one of those spare journal covers that as soon as this project came along, I was like, oh, perfect, it's ready to go. So therefore, unfortunately, you didn't see how I actually made this, so we might just do a quick recap. It might be a bit of a help then. Now let me just get the book itself, the pages I mean, up. So that there, this is for all the new people that have just joined. This here and that there is just the back and front hardcover of a children's book. So then I've created a spine through the center out of fabric, and just to sort of make it feel a little bit different, I've put this checker piece of fabric down and then stitched the check, but underneath it is just plain old calico. And I believe, yeah, so the one piece of calico, because there's actually two, so let's gosh, now we're heading off on a different tangent. I've got some scrap calico here. Let's cut it as if I'm doing it. It's probably not wide enough for what I need, but it will be enough for demonstration purposes. So I got 2 pieces of calico. Don't worry about the check fabric yet. I should just do a video on how to create one of these books, and then whenever anyone asks, I can cut and paste this into the description. Yeah, I might do that. So 2 pieces of calico, that's going to form the connecting point between the front page and the back page. And before you get too creative with everything, you need to have it split and disappear into the book. So this would have glue on it and the cover would sit on top of it. Then there would be glue on the cover and this piece would sit on top of that. So you see how these 2 pieces sandwich this guy. And before I do that, I just put some stitches through so this becomes a solid unit, but has these sides open so that a cover of a book can slip in and then be attached. So that's the principle behind this soft spine. But before I did that, I created this pretty little embroidered area, which is this. So then it sort of looks like there's more interest in there. I sort of wanted to pop a colour in there. And on the back, before I glued it all and attached it all, I slow stitched on a piece of lace. You see it there. Then once it was in the book and all attached, you can see the side there where you can see it wrapping around the cover, under the cover. So in this case, because I used fabric on the front cover, the little lip, we'll call it the flap, the lip, went on top. But this side, I had actual scrapbooking paper. It went over the cover, the decorative bit, and the flap went underneath the paper. So I sort of took my time and got it to sort of sit either side of the cover, if that makes sense. The signatures are just stitched in like you would normally stitch in signatures, and I'm a bit of a fan of putting in my pages like this. So there's a signature stitched in there. Okay, so what that is one piece of calico sitting on the top of another. Gosh, my fingers are all thumbs today. So there's two pieces there put together, stitched in, and that allows me to put a decorative piece here, and I can get my hand in here and stitch it on when I'm done. I can then come along and make another one, put it here, and it's also attached. And then when the two pretty pieces are there, together they come to create a page that has the calico within the two decorative pieces. So they're now what I call stitched in. So that's how I do my fabric journals. So I do have a project coming up using some Nikki Franklin embroideries. So I plan to do a gardener's journal for that project. So what I might do is film the making of the journal, the basic construction, and then that can be my reference point for anyone in the future that wants to know how I do this style of journal. I'll do something for that project. So stay tuned if you're doing some stitchery at the moment and you're wondering what you're going to do with all these pieces, which is the golden question, isn't it? What do we do with it all once we've made it? Okay, where am I? I've got my spare panel. I tend to then go and tear all my panels so they're ready to go. So that way, if I decide I feel like doing a page in one of my journals, I've got my base plate ready to go. So that's the one. I just check, because there might be a previous page that might be bigger and hanging out everywhere. You can see this one's been stitched on. I just double check that my base is the right size, and maybe it's a bit small, and then I see this and I go, oh, I've actually got another inch that I can place fabric down to get it to meet this guy. But in this case, that base is spot on, top, bottom and side. So whatever I do can't really go any bigger than this piece of fabric. So I always just double check that. Like, for example, this one went a little bit bigger than the base plate. So when I did the next one, I had to make sure it went a little bit bigger, if that makes sense. Okay, another thing to check is sometimes you can be tricky. I'm definitely going to put it here because it's going to blend with here. Sometimes you can bring something from this page around onto the page prior, which sort of helps whoever's viewing might then go, oh, what's this peeking through here? And you turn the page and there you go. You've got something else coming. Just depends on your design. Sometimes that doesn't quite happen, but at least you've got the options of them. They make fantastic journals. I love how it's open and you can see the signatures. You can see all the fabric. Just makes for a beautiful, beautiful journal. Okay. Let's get in amongst our goodies and see what we can pull together. Now, my thoughts is this episode will be getting our background down. I was using the red one just recently. I forgot I had the blue one. I've got to get into the habit of taking a piece of the fabric out and putting it into the package, because then I go and do another project and that would have suited, and I've forgotten that I've actually got it. So I can see that this calico or homespun is a little bit warped. It's sort of pulling, so that happens. This is a pretty cheap, economical material. It's a full cotton and it just hasn't been bleached, hence why it's a natural colour which suits my style of work that I want to do. So you sometimes have to give it a little bit of a pull. Now, I probably should get this page out, to be honest, as a reference, because if we're going to do a bit of a blend, I like doing that because it sort of gives you a bit of a focus on the piece. Let me come up a little bit. And let's see what we can do. Now, need some fabric. I threw this fabric in last time because I just felt like I was getting to the point where there wasn't a lot of inspiration. Hello, Casper. That too's been rattling around. What are the next few blocks? Crazy patchwork and needle turn applique. Okay. And then that's it. All right. This feels nice. This is some wool that's come from a vintage quilt. It was sort of in between. I wonder, I like the colour. It certainly does work with that piece, but I'm wondering, will the ribbons on a needle go through that surface? So I just want to check that before I fall in love with it and place it down. Let's just thread up this needle. So if you're wondering, I'm using a chenille needle. You want a decent eye on your needle. Yeah, beautiful. That just slid through like butter, actually. So let's use that. It'd make a nice surface. I'm just getting this ribbon out of my way. There's a doggy in there, I think. I remember that. Oh, it's a bunny. Let's use the bunny. Let's find the bunny home. He works. I believe Melanie, who owns Purveyor of Reclaimed Textiles, she gets a lot of old quilts and she cuts them down into certain shapes, and she does sell these little packs of bunnies. So the one was in with the ribbon. Okay, there you go. There's something random. So this piece is good. So I do like how there's a stitch line there. You can see where there was a quilt once attached. I don't know if you can see it. See how there's an indent where there's a stitch line? I like that. How good is that for size? My goodness me. Yeah, that'll be good. Now we probably should have a look at some of the blues. Keeping in mind it's all got a match-ish. Don't mind that. No. Like it's bold. Yeah, I like that. That's bolder. Yeah, I don't think that sort of feels quite an insipid page, which would be beautiful, but I feel like I want to keep it quite strong in colour. Let's just lay him there for a moment. Just going to creep it out a little bit so it covers the edge. Got some stripes. Almost like a stripe or a spot. Tends to break up. Maybe I can use this guy in the meantime. Turn that around. Yeah, I like that for some reason. Are there many ochre colours in here? Lots of green. Not really. Oh, there's a gold ribbon. See, this is the type of ribbon they've used in this actual piece. This is satin ribbon. These are silks. Here's a piece of satin ribbon. So that would work. Okay. All right. We've got something happening here. I definitely like this blue. Where's my scissors gone? I like how the dark blue anchors the bottom of this page too. How about Bunny? Would he fit down there? Yeah. I love how when you sit down to these pieces, you don't know where you're going to go with it. I find that really lovely, refreshing. Let's get a little piece of this. This is an old piece of fabric from my quilting days. I was doing a lot of quilts that were these tones. It's so good to be able to use it, pull it out and use it in something. Plus, I remember the pieces, you know, this was from a quilt that actually I gave my mum. It was pretty much a rectangle of embroidery, which was flowers, like in a little garden scene, like just in a little row, real simple. And then around the perimeter of that embroidered piece was 4 strips of fabric to make it into a slightly bigger rectangle. And then all of those rectangles pieced together. There was a massive embroidery across the bottom and the top, which was all those little flowers continued into a bigger panel. And then a fabric went around that whole scene, and then you started your borders from there. And the borders, to make it a little bit more of a challenge for me, I cut the big border. Let's say it was as wide as that. I cut it into strips, and then in between the strips I did more embroidery, just to sort of, because I so enjoyed doing the piece, and I was like, oh, I've done it all, it's finished. So I made the border a lap of embroidery, little sketches of things as well. And it was all flowers, just simple little flowers. They certainly didn't take long to stitch. Okay, so I'm happy with that, but I feel like we need probably something else. Let's get Bunny in. Bunny's going down the bottom. Bunny's found a home. Do we put the blue over? What else have we got here? Got a little bit of the check too. What about some stripes coming down to Bunny? That just brings the eye down to Bunny. I like to have my pieces where the eye moves around the piece. So you open the page and Bunny's the first thing you see. Then over here I'm thinking these flowers are going to weave up through. Put some random strips. Oh, that piece is actually on that page. That's perfect. So there's the page. I'll put it over here so you can see. Yeah, that's really good. And if I can find some ribbon in there that's these blue tones. Yeah, it looks like there is. Look at that. Oh, I couldn't match any better. And there's a dark yellow. Okay. We have a plan. Absolutely, we have a plan. So let me just clean this up, because at the moment I think that's all I need. We can always go back in there if we feel like it needs just that little bit extra. Now I'm going to try out my little applique pins, or applique pins that I got from my recent retreat. They're fiddly if you struggle with getting your fingers to be quite precise in picking things up. These would not work for you. They're tiny, but I do like how they disappear into the fabric, so I'm less likely to catch it with the threads when I start doing some slow stitch. There's a bit of a crease there. Should probably run the iron over these. Well, I didn't expect a bunny to be going on my page. Didn't even realise he was in there. That's really cool. Sometimes you just can't plan these things. You've just got to go with the flow. Okay. Another little pin here. All right. So what the plan will be is to fussy cut this out a little bit and maybe even cut it apart. Don't know how well that'll go. It depends on if threads follow through or they stop and... Oh, they're pre-made flowers that they've stitched on. The only thing that's actually ribbon embroidery are the leaves, these French knots. But that's a pre-made flower that's been stitched. That looks like it's coming undone a little bit, so we might have to repair him, get him tucked back in. But I'll pull out most of that fabric, I think. And then stitch him down. So let's have a go. Just don't want to cut anything I shouldn't cut. And it all just comes to bits. I guess it doesn't matter because we'll... Oh, see, I just did. I just cut that thread. Okay. This is going to be a challenge. Don't think it's going to come out. I can put some stitches in there to hold it, so I'm not too concerned. But just as I thought I would, I have. There's an interesting little stem here in the white, so that'll be good. I can duplicate that little stem. Gosh, I've wanted to do something with this little piece for so long. Plus it's been rattling around. I must have got it in a fabric pack. I can't even remember where it turned up. I think I did. It feels like it's stitched on to a piece of jacquard tablecloth or something. Yeah, I definitely don't have the original. Yeah, it's like a tablecloth fabric. Could have been a pillow slip. stitch into the flower too much in this video. I want to get that background sorted, then I'll come back in the next video and we'll play with it. So I'll just fussy cut it out now to make sure we're definitely on the right path. There's a lot of ribbon there. If I was to cut through there, I would catch that ribbon that's sitting out there. It's a bit of a mess on the background. So I'm pleased to see that even the professionals make a mess. Can't imagine it's going to get much better. Okay, we're nearly there. That's not going anywhere. So they've come up that stem and then jumped across to this stem. That's why that looks a bit odd. Yeah, that's going to work. I'd love to separate it. Maybe the other one will give me enough of a variation to change the shape, make it a little bit more interesting. It's just about carefully, emphasis on the careful, nibbling out more of the fabric so that I can get it a little finer looking and not so chunky. Yeah, that'll work. And then this little guy, I'm thinking if I can, maybe it's got to go straighter and this guy comes out. Okay, that's going to work a treat. All right, we'll leave that for a moment. And I want to start stitching down these pieces. Oh, go green. That green matches that really well. Can be a funny colour, but it can blend a bit. Let's leave it for a moment. Let's have a go with this and my needle. What I might do is we'll get a running stitch in around, gosh, this needs cleaning, this little board. We might just do a basic running stitch around this wool just to secure that perimeter, and in the process we can sort of have a quick look at what the stitch looks like and whether I stitch all the way through. It is disappearing a little bit into the texture, so I think if I did do, I'm going to use that stitch line that I was talking about a minute ago to come up the side. Yeah, I think I'll just frame this piece, not doing anything too crazy in there because I've got the embroidery going in there, so it's probably a waste of energy. And if I'm pulling a thread with ribbon in it, I'm going to have to do some invisible stitches as well because this piece is hanging over. That's hanging over a lot. Hang on, hold the horses. I recall that when I placed it into that journal, it had to be pretty much the size of the base plate or the base page. That's exactly why I do that. Otherwise you end up having your pieces bigger than what you can actually fit in your book. So it pays to check. And I'm just going to flip this and let's see how bad it would have been. Let's flip it over. Look at that. It's hanging out everywhere. So hold your horses, girl. And we're going to jiggle this so that I can see that calico edge a little better. Shouldn't be too hard. Let's pull her back. Back you come. That's it. I must have, I would have done it because I would have seen this edge popping out here and it was here. So to straighten it, I've just gone a little bit further. So I might still do that, but trim it back to make sure it stays within the perimeters of the piece. Now this, I think that was through there, just a random splash of blue. That needs to come across. Mr. Bunny, across you come a little bit. Okay, that's fine. Oh, my tummy's rumbling already and it's at least 2 hours from breakfast. Isn't that a good sign? It means I didn't eat too much yesterday. Okay, now let's just get this floral piece across a little bit. See, it's quite a bit, it was out, probably 1/4 of an inch in some places. That's better. So looking at this, I think this floral piece will be heavily quilted with running stitch. I sort of feel like that would look good. And then these little pieces I think will be also quilted. And probably even this background piece of the blue. Unless I seed stitch this, that'd be cute. Put little seed stitches right through that blue. So the big floral piece would have stitches going probably through like that. This little piece can have stitches going through like that, cross horizontally. This guy here probably go across as well. And then little seed stitches, maybe around Bunny, I don't know. Maybe frame it out like I'm going to do here. I think that's everything attached. I just want one more pin in here. And let's flip it over. Yeah, that's better. Just give that a little trim. That'll help me see my boundaries. Okay, that's better. Wonder what she cuts these bunnies out of. Be a die cut. Looks too neat for scissors. Is that what those Sizzix do? Is it Sizzix? Don't know much about them. Where's my thread? There we go. Okay. Now, we're back to where we were. I should have checked that. That was very remiss of me. Okay, let's tuck it in behind. And this will just have a perimeter of stitches. It's nice to stitch through that blanket. So if you're pulling apart an old quilt and you've got the felt or the blanket that's in the middle, keep it, especially if it's a lovely colour. This is pretty, this colour. Okay. So episode 2 of this will be next week, because I've got another idea for my shabby chic rice bag storage tote. So I've done one side on it using the string scrappy quilting method, where it's just scraps of fabrics radiating out from a centre, and then you embellish it and stitch all sorts of goodies on top, threads and laces and all sorts of stuff. So I've done one side and I was unsure what I was going to do on the next, and I thought, it doesn't matter, I'm going to just put it aside, and when something comes along that I'm like, oh, I'm going to try that, it's ready to go, and it gives me a nice little space to stitch in instead of a big page like this. It's, you know, I think it's 6 inches by 6 inches or 7 or by 7. I can't remember now. So the other day I was watching Sonia from Sonia's Steptoe, and she was showing some of the quilting techniques on one of the videos, and she reminded me of one that I did way back. I'm going to dig out my examples, because I did it as a tag firstly with Anne Brooks, and it was weaving strips of fabric, and it'll sort of suit with the whole theme of that quilt, that little bag, because I've done a scrappy looking panel. That inspiration also came from Sonia, who was watching Annie Claxton, and she was working on a bigger piece. So, yeah, I was watching Sonia. Hi, Sonia. And she showed a panel that she'd made some time ago using little squares. And then she was talking about weaving, and I was like, weaving, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm itching to get my hands back into that. There we go. So that is now secure. A simple little border. I'll bring that up. You can see just a simple little stitch around the outer edge. And these pieces are going to be a running stitch coming down. So what I might do is just quickly do a couple invisible stitches. That way I can get rid of the pins. Being that I'm going to work on the floral, I might just flip this guy back out of the way, because I want a nice straight run at it. Let's get a couple little itty bitty stitches in. I need a smaller needle head. My thread fell out too easily, so that will drive me bonkers. So I'm just going to, yep, that's better. Just a little stitch to make sure the fabric is sitting nicely, and I don't have to worry about pins and Now once I get off camera, I'll go through and stitch all of it down, but I won't bore you with that. I want to sort of skip ahead a little bit. Little bunny, what are we going to stitch you with? Maybe just a simple blanket stitch. Haven't done blanket stitch for ages. It's one of those stitches that you do a lot as a kid when you're learning, and then when you get to my ripe old age, you're sort of like, oh, I just want to do a more of a primitive style of stitch, and it's sort of refreshing because you did so much as a kid. But maybe Bunny needs blanket stitch. Could just do a simple running stitch around him. Okay, so that's nice and secure. Doesn't need an iron, but we won't waste time mucking around with that. This is good. This will give me a piece to stitch tonight. I didn't have anything to stitch last night. I know I was just mindlessly staring at the TV screen. We did work pretty hard all day, so I think it was because we had emptied a couple of shipping containers, so I'd physically had a pretty big day. So I just sat there and stared at the screen. Just going to whip through Bunny as well. I've got a little bit of thread left, so I'm going to just catch him down. There we go, young fella. He's a cutie. I love it just sitting down to a pile of fabrics and just build something. I find that very rewarding. These are probably my favourite projects to do, where I'm not making anything, so there's no pressure to continue on and complete something. I'm just doing a piece of slow stitch. It doesn't have to always go into something. If anything, then that becomes a big project, and then you've got it hanging over your head. I must get back to it. Just doing a simple page in a journal that every so often you throw another page into is just really good. Even my Roxy Journal of Stitchery books that I've got, there's spare pages in amongst them still. And it's great because I can go back through the prompts and do another page for another prompt. Just hit repeat, so to speak. That's pretty good. Everything's holding. And I'll leave them turned for now because I want to try and get some stitches in under them. So let's start. How are we going for time? Oh, plenty of time. Doesn't an hour go quick? Especially when you're stitching. Okay, I'm pretty sure I want them to go that way. I'm going to just focus on this piece and do a running stitch, kantha stitch, stacking the needle, so pushing it through, pulling the fabric up onto the needle just by doing that rocking motion. That's the best way to do it. If you come up and down, you're just taking forever to do something, but you don't need to. And if the fabric's soft like this, not many layers, you can actually get a fair way, and then just pull your thread through, make sure it's sitting right. We're just disappearing in behind. That's it. Try not to pull it too tight. You want your threads not to look all puckered. You will get a puckered effect, but good. And then back we go. This is slow stitch to the best description. Just taking your time, laying down your threads, put on a movie or sit down with your mates for a chat, and you just got this little piece of stitching. Gosh, I hope you can't hear my belly rumbling. Time to go and make my porridge for breakfast. And I've got myself a piece of stitching waiting for me at the end of the day. It's just hard to put it down once I get started. It's hard to. My tummy is a rumbling. Here we go. Have I got enough thread to get back down? Yes, I do. So we're just going to scoot across with the needle. No, it's not quite in the right spot, could be better. Let's lift it up a little bit. The only thing I haven't worked into this is some lace. So I need to have a think about that, but that can happen in the next stage, I think. We might work some lace in amongst the embroidery. Perfect. And down, in behind there. I think that might do it. Oh gosh, it would come close to going up again. Let's have a go at it, hey? I might pull that last stitch out. That'll just give me a few mil more. Am I being too miserly of my threads? Don't know if it will make it. So if you wanted to really make it easy on yourself, you could draw your lines. Just get your friction pen and a ruler and draw yourself a set of lines. And then really sit back and, so that's crooked. Both of them are crooked. I'm going to pull them out. I'm going to end it off because I just feel like I'm pushing the boundaries here and I don't need to. I could get another piece of cotton. Okay. And down. End it off, girl. Stop. All right. That's good. Another piece. How are we going for time? We've got time. We can do a couple more rows. Gosh, I have got threads everywhere. I've really got to vacuum the carpet in my room. Oh, I can't wait till I get my new purpose-built studio in the future house because I've got no carpet on the floor. I've got a tile and I can't wait because then I can just give it a little bit of a broom. If I spill something, I'm not going to be stressing. Not that I spill anything. I try very carefully not to. But you know what I mean. It'll just be so much easier to shimmy something around to give it a clean. One of those broom things that have got a flat sponge at the end of it, like what shopping centre staff use when they are cleaning the big floors in shopping centres. I've got one for the main part of this house. It's got like a timber floor through it. And it's so good. Just shimmy that thing around. There's even threads as you head out my room. There's threads all the way to the kitchen. There's heaps of threads in the TV room because I'm sitting and stitching. And it's like a charcoal grey carpet in this house, dark grey. So my little white threads are everywhere. Look, they're on me all the time. I look like I'm a, oh goodness, I don't know what I look like. You go to the shops and there's just threads dangling off you everywhere. Or pins. I used to have a bad habit of putting pins into my shirts, especially when I was making clothes. You'd just pick the pin up and you'd pin it into your lapel. That's crooked. That's crooked. That's the benefit of doing a long stacked stitch on a needle, is you get your needle nice and straight and away you go. When you come up and down a few times, you tend to get a little bit crooked. Once they're all stitched down, like that stitch there's crooked. But anyway, once they're all stitched down, it looks heaps better. And there's Pepper and Bandit having a yibby yabba. Can just about guarantee. There's a few of you out there that are sitting watching me with puppy dogs and pussycats, and you tell me how when my pair of puppy dogs or the lads meow or woof, your animals react. It's pretty cute. Love to know what they're all saying. That's good. I must be nearly past, not quite. This last stitch or row of stitches will pass me. I can flip back that stripy brown. Look at the colour match, is so good there. Oh, I love it when a plan comes together. Okay, so we can now turn around. So it doesn't take long. I guess it takes a while, but riveting viewing for you guys. So there's a link to Susanna's channel in the blurb or the description below. So you can go over and see what she's doing. She's working with soft pastel pretty colours, where I've gone more earthy tones. So if you're interested in checking that out. And she's being very true to all of the different techniques. Like the log cabin, which was last month, she sewed that on a sewing machine. So it is exactly how you would do a log cabin, where mine was a hand-stitched version. So I'm trying to do sort of slightly different angle on all of the prompts, just so that you see, you know, another way to approach the same thing. So it's a lot of fun, because we haven't conversed in the way of how we're going to do it. We've just gone and done it and then sent each other a picture. And it's been really fun. Just the different interpretations of the same thing. You would have noticed that with the Roxy Journal of Stitchery. All the different pages just look fantastic. Hasn't it become big? There is thousands of people out there participating. It's so good. And I love how we're all drifting across lots of projects, because the girls project, the Roxy girls, it's every 2 weeks. So you've got time. You can dedicate a few days to doing their prompt, and then you've got time to go looking for another project or pick up an old project. I just think that's fantastic. So that little guy is good. He now, I think, can have some invisible stitch. That'll hold him into position until I'm ready to actually stitch him. So I just get my cotton and pop just some itty bitty stitches in that fabric. At least now you can squish this panel up in your hand and not be afraid of getting a prick from a pin. It's pretty good. I'll just scoot up here. That corner rolling up's annoying me a bit. So let's just go up here and catch it down. Okay, that's excellent. How are we going for time? We've got a little bit of time. What I might do is I'm going to frame out the rabbit's blue patch. So let's just grab some thread, and I just want to run a frame around him. We'll start up here. Just to give him a bit of a box to sit in visually. Ow. Okay. Round we go. Love navy blue, especially when it's got a bit of a punchy brightness about it. Trying to stay as close as I can to the edge. We're going to go over the hour. That stitch is huge. Back it up. Start it again. Make it easier on myself. Get my bigger needle. This is the chenille needle. That's better. Yeah, that's going to look good. That's going to help him to pop a little bit. So my homework will be to completely finish stitching down the background. So when we come back in the next video, which will be next week, we can start really working on the embroidery aspect of this panel to get those ribbons out. And I think we'll work a little bit of lace into it as well, just to soften it. maybe some form of lace flower to add to it. Okay. And nearly there. And we've just hit the hour. So you're going to have to stay back after school, guys. And I can tuck a stitch in behind and you'll never know that it's not. So what I might do is start the one here. I might actually continue on and use that as my guide to stitch. So that looks interesting like that. Yep, that's how we're going to do it. And then I can easily use that extra bit of thread that's left. I can come up here and use that as my guide to stitch some little rows just on that stripy piece of fabric right through. Yeah, I like that. We'll keep going, like, what's it matter? I've got a little bit of thread left. So let's just use it up. I'm sure you guys aren't going anywhere. You're going to hang until the end. You would have well and truly left by now. Okay, I think I can get back just enough. Get rid of that pin and that pin. You know, I don't even mind that rabbit sitting there a little bit loose. I wonder if I did some more invisible stitch through him so his body was secure, but left his, because you can see the wadding that was on that quilt in there. I don't mind that. Instead of stitching him down, I'm going to leave him a little bit fluffier looking. Haven't done that before. So more invisible stitch through the centre of him. Concentrate on what I'm doing. I'm going crooked. Should be thinking about my stitching. Instead, I'm thinking about the rabbit. There we go. Beautiful. Righto, we're not going to push it anymore by trying to do it well we could. No. We're going to finish it off. There we go. That's a really good start, and I've got lots of homework. So, yeah, I'm going to invisible stitch him because I like how I can see him three-dimensionally. He's puffy. So let's do that. I will finish doing this, I will finish doing that, and I will also get this stitched down as well. And then I'll be back and we can really start to play. All right, guys, thanks for joining me in getting the background sorted and a bit of a plan of attack. And we will see you in the next video. Okay, bye for now.